Well, that was a nasty few days. Holy shizzle. Up at 4:30, 3 days in a row. Sarah actually did. She pulled it off and didn't have a nervous breakdown. And even considering this first day of the 3-day fishing derby was rain like you've never seen before in your life. Big waves and wind and hell. And she stuck it out. Couldn't believe it. She actually caught some fish. We didn't place in the derby, but that's okay. It was fun. And there's actually what's called, they call it the derby curse. It's where everybody's catching fish like crazy for a few weeks straight, and then all of a sudden it goes flatline during the annual big fishing derby. It's pretty bizarre. There's literally thousands of people in that fishing derby, and not very many fish got weighed in. 31-pound salmon weighed in. And I think the second day nobody caught any fish, like basically nobody. A few fish got caught. We got a handful, but nothing big. It was a good time. But anyway, just got back last evening. I stopped in the river. I thought after that big rain it might have triggered a handful of spring salmon to go up the river, and it sure did. And I videotaped and put it up on the other channel. Here's a clip right here. I wish I was here to film more. But I gotta go. I gotta leave tomorrow, and then I will be back up into the mountains, and I'm gonna be doing the length of I'm gonna be traveling the length of the province of British Columbia, and I'm gonna be hooking up and meeting up with a bunch of people who have emailed me their experiences. And a few of you that emailed in for me to get a hold of you, I haven't emailed you back, but I will. All right, and I'm coming. You people that are just between Dawson Creek and Chatwin, I'm gonna get a hold of you guys too. Prince George, Fort St. John, Hudson Hope, Chetwynd, lots of people. I'm going to meet up with a lot of people and see if we can get to the bottom of a few things and share some knowledge. So this will be the last video you see from here. The next time, what I think I might be able to do possibly is, because normally when I go away I can't do anything to deliver to you guys any new information or knowledge I get because I'm away, right? But in between some destinations I might be able to get some service, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my old phone, which still has hundreds of shares that I haven't shared yet, so I will be able to read off that phone and set up this phone and make a video on this phone and then load it to the YouTube when I get appropriate connection somewhere. So I will be able to feed the channel and feed more knowledge to you guys throughout this month somehow. But I will. But this will be the last one from here for a while. All right, I gotta go up and start packing. I gotta leave tomorrow. Yeah, what do we got? Lots. What's this one? I don't even know what this is about. All right, let's just get it out. It's from, here we go. Let's just read it. Dear Steve, I'm a former cop, Army aviator, and disabled veteran. You speak for millions of us when you talk about our government and the loss of liberties. I hated being a traffic cop. I enjoyed being a criminal investigator. It is the traffic cop mindset that gives police the bad rap when they work so hard for. Modern cops should be called revenue enhancement officers, but they don't deserve all the blame. Mayors and council members encourage this for the almighty dollar it brings. There are some cities near me that I refuse to drive through unless it's the only alternative. About 10 years ago, I was rolling up to a red traffic light. Just as I rolled to a stop, I quickly unbuckled my seatbelt, pulled off my jacket, then buckled up again. This was all while sitting in the dark. This was all while sitting still. Okay, this was all while, I'm imagining, sitting still, and took about 5 seconds. A police officer behind me pulled me over and gave me a ticket. When I protested, he said, "We have a zero tolerance policy. You should have pulled over." I went to court on the charge. I was told that they would dismiss the charge now if I paid $25, or I could wait all day to see the judge, but might have to come back another day. I paid and they still won. Keep digging, keep your head on a swivel. If I were able, I would have your 6. I hope my story isn't too long and boring. To this day, I still cannot talk about this with my wife. She absolutely will not hear anything about a cryptid. Once we got into one argument so bad about this that I thought we were going to get a divorce. Please share my story and name. I'm 64. I just don't give a shit anymore. My encounter near Amacalola River, March 1974. Okay, I got to get out of the sun. As an elementary school student in 1971, I saw Legend of Boggy Creek. I later read Peter Burns' little paperback book on Bigfoot. The North Georgia mountains, especially the Appalachians, are rich with legends and strange stories about boogers. Parents and adults would say, don't be out at night. That's when the booger bears come out. Or, don't go there, the boogers will get you. And the most common term was booger bear. Problem was, nobody'd ever tell you what a booger was or how it looked, so we thought it was only a scary story. In the spring of 1973, a story circulated that a game warden went missing overnight and was found on a rural road walking the next morning by a farmer. He was exhausted and confused with his clothes torn and couldn't really remember what had happened. It was later said that he claimed to have seen a tall, hairy creature with a big head and a face like a bull. The story was buzzing for about 2 weeks, and suddenly all talk went quiet. We think he either quit or the state relocated him. I actually heard that story too. Well, back rings a bell. It was March 1974 when I was 15. I didn't drink or smoke or anything. I was a straight arrow football player and not the type to tell stories. About 8 p.m. I was riding in a car with 3 other guys, and the driver was about a year older than us. We were spotlighting deer, illegal, but not for the purpose of shooting one, just checking them out. We were going down an old road that was barely paved and full of potholes. As we rolled along at about 10 to 15 miles per hour, we spotted a buck and 2 does up on a chest-high red clay bank with bushes and overgrowth, partially blocking our view. This was at a 4-way crossroads where a very narrow gravel road led off to the right into a completely deserted forest with no houses. On the left was another dirt/gravel road with an old church on the corner. Further down that road were a couple of farms. A river runs down one side that is fed by Amacalola Falls, which is located at the head of the Appalachian Trail. Ironically, there is an area of the river known as the Devil's Elbow, where moonshiners, car thieves, pot growers, and hunters were alleged to have gone missing over the years. This is the same area where the game warden went missing. I was in the passenger rear seat and couldn't really see the deer. We stopped, and the guy in front of me got out with a spotlight, an old D-cell, and shined the deer. It was apparent they had been running and were tired because they didn't haul ass when we lit them up. About 3 or 4 seconds after exiting the back seat, I heard a crack/pop, 45 degrees to my right in the forest toward the narrow road. My friend who was sitting next to me heard it and said, "Oh shit, I bet that's a game warden." I said, "That's one noisy game warden." He then began urging the driver to get us out of there. About that time came more noise, like something large moving through the woods. I instantly thought bear, because a 500-pounder was killed in our area, but bears are known to be quiet when walking. So I start saying, "Let's go," and the hair starts standing up in my arms and neck, and I begin to feel sick with fear. About that time, approximately 75 or 80 feet to my right, a 15 to 20 degree angle, I watched a large, hulking figure cross that road from bank to bank in 3 forward-leaning large steps while swinging its arms. From the sound it was making, it appeared to be approaching the deer, and at that moment they bolted out of there like a shot from a cannon. I was frozen with fear, and it seems like time had slowed down. My friend to the left says, "What the hell was that?" And now we are both saying, "Let's go, let's go," and we have one foot in the car. Then, as I look up on top of the embankment, I see the outline of a figure moving slowly to get behind a tree about 60 feet away. His face/head was obscured by the tree and limbs. My friend with the spotlight starts slowly getting in the car while me and the other dude dive in the back seat. At this time, my older and more stubborn friend pulls out a .22 caliber pistol and says, "Who are you? Talk to me or I'll shoot." Now we are screaming, "Let's go," as he again says, "Tell me who you are or I will shoot." My friend in front of me still has the light pointed out over the door, even though he is now back in the car. At that instant, we hear bang, bang, as the driver shoots up in the air. He immediately throws the pistol in the car and jumps in as we spin out of there sideways. Now I'm shaking all over so bad that my feet are actually tapping, and everybody but the driver is talking at once. I don't remember who asked first. I think the guy in the front, they got a better look, but he said, "What did you see?" The driver is silent as we drove until we found a closed gas station and pulled in. Now driver got out and leaned over as if he would vomit. He then went to the drink machine and got a Coke. He drank a little but still wouldn't talk. So now my friend is driving us all home, and it's almost 10 p.m. We are planning to go back the next day to look around in daylight. We also agree to only tell our families, minus the part about the gunfire, of course. After we drop off my friend in the back, we were headed to my house. My friend in front says to the driver, "Hey man, what did you see?" Nothing but silence until we get to my house. My friend in front says, "You saw his face, didn't you?" He very, very quietly said, I sat there for a minute waiting for more, but it was obvious that he wasn't talking, and it was getting late on a school night. I then, of all things, I had to get out and walk up the long path to the dark backside of my house, which sat at the foot of a mountain. When I got inside, my mom noticed that there was something wrong, and her first question was, "Has somebody been drinking?" That was all I needed. So, as I finally managed to tell my story, my mom replied, "Huh? It was probably the devil." But my dad, who grew up on a farm only a few miles from this incident, sat silent looking at the TV. It was his older generation on both sides of the family who used the term booger. Growing up on a farm, he knew all too well about booger stories, and later said that he used to hear strange screaming sounds in the woods. On panthers, but they were all hunted and killed off by the 1900s. My dad did talk about walking from church one summer night with something following him. He said every time he stopped, it stopped. He said he pulled out his knife and walked home backwards for 1.5 miles until he got into the front porch light where it no longer followed him. I shared this story with a few people over the years, but most laughed and ridiculed me, so I learned to shut my mouth. So the following day, we all went back, and our driver is still not saying much. We get to the location and cannot find footprints, but do find broken branches and impressions in the ground. Then we get to the tree where its face was hidden. A prominent, crooked limb stuck out and bent upward. I could stand flat-footed and reach the limb with my arm almost extended. That put the creature at about 8 feet or more. We went back 2 times that night to look, stupid and heavily armed, but found nothing, thank God. About 3 months later, I was in church and saw a girl that lived off the main road there, near there. I told her what happened, and a profoundly serious expression overtook her face. She informed me that it had ran across the road in front of her one night while coming home from a football game. She also said that her uncle saw it coming out of his chicken house about a year prior. I sat there silently thinking, oh God, why have you allowed such things to exist? In 1980, a new subdivision was being built near our encounter. A story started circulating that the first resident of the subdivision came home one night to find his back door broken down and his kitchen ransacked. Nothing stolen, just a destroyed kitchen. I didn't know the man, but all the things, he was related to my friend who drove the night of our encounter. Before church one morning, some 6 years later, if he had heard about the break-in, and he simply said yes. I again asked, did its face that night? He nodded yes, and then looked away. The sight of it really scrambled his eggs, and he didn't want to deal with it. As far as I know, nothing ever came of the vandalized house incident, as that story died quickly, just like the game warden story. I later told my dad a story that my very peculiar aunt once told me at age 5 or 6. She and my uncle lived in a house on top of a big hill at the foot of the mountain about 5 miles from our incident. She claimed that while rocking on a front porch one night, a large, hairy man with a very ugly face came around the corner and stood motionless, looking at her about 8 feet away. She said that she felt paralyzed with fear and could only cut her eyes to look at it. She was unable to call out to my uncle sitting in the living room behind only feet away. She claimed that she closed her eyes very tight and began praying. In a few seconds she opened her eyes and it was gone. I remember her saying his face looked like it was hit by a hammer. I asked my dad if she was crazy, to which he replied, Folks thought so. Steve, this is what I shared with you in my original email, but following is the rest of the story. I thought this sounded familiar. Since then, I've frequented Expedition Bigfoot, where I was honored to have met David Pilatus and Scott Carpenter. Owner David Bacara has encouraged me to talk about things that I learned as an Army aviator and police officer. You might call this part 2. As a deputy sheriff in the North Georgia Hills in 1981, I experienced many calls where a motion sensor lights were activated, but I could find no footprints outside. Small outdoor items would disappear to later be found several hundred feet away. And there was this one place where animal feed was frequently missing. The most troubling were prowler calls where the residents knew something was outside, but no sign could be located. In another jurisdiction to my north, 2 young girls were traumatized when a large, hairy, ugly man looked at them through their bedroom window while they're playing on the floor. The mother had to abandon the house and put the girls into therapy. This kind of shit is where I draw the line with these creatures. Steve, I would not hesitate to shoot one for doing this. Sorry, I must be honest. As a criminal investigator, longtime drug agent Friend was temporarily put on detachment with the DEA. He told me about seeing these creatures on a regular basis when staking out large grow fields. He later questioned other agents about this, and they would nonchalantly say, "Oh yeah, we see them all the time." He later learned that all video from stakeouts had to be immediately returned in so it could be scrubbed of these critters. Some areas around the Georgia-Florida line are so populated that personnel from state wildlife are assigned to the stakeouts along with occasional unknown personnel in black combat gear without uniform patches. Here comes my token helicopter. I had a helicopter go over the place the other day. I was in the shop sitting down. It went over the house so low, it shook the frickin' seat I was sitting in on the floor below me. I know you probably can't hear it too loud. I hear it loud and clear, and it bugs the shit out of me. Whatever. A game warden buddy of mine would never discuss any of this until after he retired. He would only laugh it off and say, "Yeah, I've heard all kinds of stuff." Much later after his retirement, we reached an agreement. Alright. Might not bug you, but it bugs the shit out of me. I'm gonna let this sucker pass overhead. Alright, here we go again. Much later, after his retirement, we reached an agreement where if I never mentioned his name, I would ask questions and he would simply nod in the affirmative if I asked him something he knew about. I was able to confirm that the big black bear was often used for Sasquatch sighting or incident. Big dogs, or black dogs, are terms used for dogman sightings. I was also able to confirm a story told to me by a friend who moved into a new subdivision adjacent to a national park. He was one of the first residents in the early 90s and is an avid hunter. He called me and was obviously troubled. He said that lots of deer would congregate at night in his cul-de-sac and would hang out as people got in their cars to leave. He described seeing the biggest German shepherd or wolf in his life on the creek below his house. He also described loud coyote-like howls in the area that didn't sound right. My retired friend nodded in the affirmative as I presented the events. As an Army aviator, I later learned incidents surrounding the crash of an Army Cobra helicopter in the mountains of North Georgia, near an Army Ranger camp. The Cobra had crashed at night and burned. Within about 5 or 6 hours, 6 MPs arrived to secure the site until the next day when investigators could arrive. The MPs set up tents and made a fire about 60 feet from the crash site. Sometime after midnight, one MP heard a clanking noise and advanced to the site where he and another MP witnessed 3 large, hairy creatures pulling the pilots' bodies out of the wreckage. They opened fire over their heads of these creatures, causing them to drop the bodies and flee. Not the behavior of friendly forest dwellers, huh? I also learned of a massive troop exercise out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where a large creature was hunted down and killed next to land between the legs. Whatever it was required a deuce and a half with a winch to pull its body up onto a ridge where a Chinook with a cargo net could carry it away. Thanks again, Steve. I wonder just how many people from my area have even better stories, but won't come forward for fear of ridicule. Sincerely, Rick Cox. Rick, absolutely appreciate your time and everything you just shared with everybody. I'm sure what you just shared is going to ring the memory of somebody who knows exactly what you just mentioned. One of these incidents, right? Without a doubt. Possibly the people directly involved. or other people who just happen to be living or outdoor recreating around the same zone. Non-stop. Don't tell the people. Don't share the truth with the people, right? The people don't count, right? Don't let the people know. Not anymore. Thanks again for that share, man. Keep sharing whatever you can here through me with all the people. If it's something that you feel that everybody could benefit from, all right? Keep it coming. 2015 hunting experience. Hey Steve, I hope all is well with you and your crew. I just want to share an experience that I had while hunting in late September and early October 2015. My name is Philip White, and I've been watching and listening to your videos for the past year or more. My experience happened while on an annual hunting trip that I take with a couple of friends of mine north of Lac La Biche, Alberta. We set up a wall tent after arriving at our usual spot and got situated. I decided to leave and do a little scouting on my quad where we hunted. I decided to venture and drive a couple of branches of the cut blocks where we were. I drove down an old connector road that was full of tall grass and old felled trees. I was approaching a clear cut and decided to walk and maybe get a look at any deer in the area. As I walked through the grass, I heard something digging or tearing at roots. I wasn't sure what it was and was a little freaked out. I chambered around and decided to wait and see what it might be. I could catch a glimpse of black between the leaves, but eventually figured it was a bear. I decided to back out. The thing about it was that usually bears will flee in a hurry when you approach them. Could have been a juvenile. The next morning we got up, made coffee, decided on where we go for the day. I left and went into the area where I was the previous day, but at a different loop. The morning was foggy and unusually warm. I drove to the loop where I was going to walk, parked the quad, and proceeded to walk up to the loop. I remember that it was really quiet. The sun wasn't up, but was bright. When I got to the top of the hill, which I was climbing, the silence was shattered. I heard the loudest scream/yell/roar that I've ever heard. I was frozen. I managed to chamber around and raise my rifle. Then, 10 seconds later, I heard it again. Immediately, you start to go through all the animals that are native to the area. Moose, whitetail, caribou, black bear, maybe a mountain lion. No way. To me, there is nothing known of that possesses the volume that can create that noise. I was at least 200 yards from the tree line. The cut block was at least 400 yards long. I scanned the area and saw nothing. After the second scream, there were numerous coyote yelps from the area in several different locations. To me, maybe whatever made the noise was pissed off and was being pestered by the dogs. Maybe it had a kill. I stuck around but heard or saw nothing. After several minutes, the sun broke through the fog. The birds started to sing and things returned to normal. When I returned to camp, I regurgitated what had happened to the boys, and they probably thought I was a little crazy. I know what I heard, and to me there was only one answer: Sasquatch. I'm not sure if it was that evening or the evening after. I was tucked away on a hill overlooking another cut block location when out of nowhere I heard voices, people talking, but couldn't hear what they were saying. As far as I knew, I was the only person in there. After listening for several minutes, I decided it may have been someone picking berries or camping, and decided to leave. These thoughts and memories were buried for a couple of years until I watched a show on Netflix, and all the thoughts came flooding back. I've been a believer ever since. I've told everyone that I work with and have no regrets, and have heard from a co-worker who had a sighting near Rocky Mountain House in the early 90s, as well as another co-worker whose father saw one around the House River while traveling Highway 63. I'm originally from the East Coast and travel home usually once a year, and all a person has to do is look out the window of an airplane to realize that there is a great amount of land that these people could inhabit and stay hidden with ease. These creatures are worldwide without a doubt, masters of their domain. Keep up the great work you're doing. We all really appreciate it. Philip White. Philip, we all appreciate you for sending that in. And rural Alberta is no stranger to all this shit going on at all, right? It's just not. Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, the Yukon, Alaska, the lower 48, every single chunk of land you can come up with, there's sightings there, right? so many people. Is anybody else freaked out at how many frickin' emails have come in through this channel? It's absolutely amazing. Right? And again, it kind of makes you kind of wonder why all the so-called big names in this topic, either they received this amount of emails or notifications, and imagine how many they ignored and didn't share with all of you. Because they didn't think it was appropriate, possibly. What a crock of shit. That kind of just makes me angry. Whatever. Stopped myself shy of going on a rant. It happened on August 14th, 2021. I was having a very enjoyable drive from Fairbanks to Big Lake, Alaska. The sun was shining and I was on vacation. There's no better combination. I left around noon and had stopped in multiple places and it was getting late, so I decided to spend the night in my truck. I spotted a sign that said, "Dead End Road Ahead." This seemed like the perfect place to get up the highway, away from the noise, to spend the night. It turned out to be a rather short road down over a hill to a creek. The state or road crew was using this place to fill water trucks, as there was a pump at the creek and a standpipe right at the end of the road. There was a wide open place to park, so I parked facing the creek. I'd not been there but a couple of minutes when I got a weird feeling of being trapped. Normally, there was always a rifle or pistol in the truck, but I'd left my .44 mag and Defender shotgun at my wife's place in Fairbanks since I would be flying back to Bethel, Alaska in a few days. When this feeling of being trapped flooded over me, I decided to turn the truck around, so if I had to leave this spot, there would be no messing around trying to get out of there. After turning the truck around, I felt much better. Taking my shoes off and leaning the seat back, I watched the sunset. Had a bite to eat and just tried to relax. I got my laptop out and proceeded to play some games and the like. It had become full-on dark in just about a few minutes, and everything seemed okay, until what sounded like a small pebble hit the passenger side door. I froze in place, my mind going supersonic, knowing that I was the only one down here approximately 300 yards from the highway. I can't tell you why I sat there for another 5 minutes or so, but I did. The second rock was no pebble. It was a loud clunk. My seat went up, the truck fired up, lights came on, and I was out of there. I drove for maybe 5, 6, or 7 miles until I saw another pull off and pulled off. The atmosphere of this place was way different. I had the feeling everything was right with the world, or at least my part of it. I went to sleep and slept without incident the whole night through. Thinking about this experience, I know as you do, that only critters with arms and hands and fingers can throw rocks. I thank you for your honesty and character, and for giving us a place to share our experience without fear of being made fun or changing the facts to fit a narrative. Respectfully, David Stovner, Bethel, Alaska. David, thanks for that share, man. And you're not alone in that one. You know what? I remember I took a friend to a place near Pemberton where there's a whole pile of sightings. We went at right last light in the evening. Zero wind, nobody around. Driving down the road, and the nearest was off to the side at about 20 yards. And to the left side was all logging clear cut. And drive along, and pine cones bounced off the roof of the vehicle. Go figure, right? Anyway, thanks again for that share. Y12 Nuclear Plant, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. My name is Stephen Burris. I feel like I need to share the knowledge. First off, thanks for having a safe place for people to share. So here I go. It was a hot summer day in 2016. I was hunting ginseng close to the nuclear site. I'd been having good luck all day, so I spent most of the day on my knees digging. About 20 minutes till dark, I decided to leave. That's when I heard the loudest scream / yelling I've ever heard in my life. Stephen, we have black panthers here in New River, and Oak Ridge also have bears, mountain lions, and massive hog problems. But nothing I've ever heard or seen can compare to this yell I felt in my soul. I tried to run, but I couldn't move. It's like I was in shock, like I had just been through a shooting or a bad wreck. I was stunned. I finally made it back to my car, only to be greeted by soldiers with machine guns. They were chasing something, and they thought it was me. They quickly realized I was not as big as what they're after. See, my family's from the big mountains, so
We can walk into Kentucky from Tennessee. Been in the woods since I was 3, Cherokee/Irish. I've been aware and taught about the Sabe or hairy people. My family stories passed down were always leave them alone and they won't bother you. But the bad ones live alone and will take our women and children. Steve, my uncle Jose, is dead now, but he run the security at Y12. He said they killed 3 or 4 every year trying to get in the plant. The old timers used to tell us about the time one of the Sabe came into the holler and tried to snatch up a woman. They shot it 6 times and it just stood there, grabbed the girl and left. Never seen her again, and every week a boulder or tree would crash through the cabin at night. This went on for a year till they finally moved. Steve, I was hunting ginseng on 8/2/21 in New River, probably 5 miles from any road or anything. I was doing good, then I just had this overwhelming fear come over me, like somebody's watching me. I got up, loomed around, and out of nowhere, this head pops up from around this huge maple tree just staring right at me. I literally pissed my pants right there. I was frozen with fear. I ran almost like I was in slow motion to the car, fast as I could. It was running behind me, Steve, and it was throwing rocks and trees were breaking, I swear. I've never been that scared in my life. And Steve, I've been shot at and shot. Steve, thanks for all you do. You changed my life, and now I go back into the woods. Thank you, Steve. Steve Burris from Oak Ridge, Tennessee /East Tennessee. You still go back in the woods after being chased by one of those pricks. It's pretty good, man. Pretty good. Glad you overcame it. Sorry you had to go through that kind of a shit-eating experience. But it sounds like you've got a wealth of knowledge on the topic, and you've been around other people who do as well, right? That's good. That's a good thing, is to have at least have a few people, first-hand people in your circle of trust, right? That you can talk to about this shit. The amount of people that can't talk, they're out there still. There's still a shit pile of people listening to me relay everything you guys got to share. I'll guarantee you there's thousands probably watching this video right now, and they do not feel confident enough to reach out and share it publicly, which is fine. This is fine. If one day you feel like doing it, just go ahead and do it. You don't want me to say your name? I don't say your name. I don't share anything. When people ask me not to share something, I don't share it. I just don't. If you don't respect the people, you can't respect people and have a good word, you got nothing in this lifetime. You have nothing. Alright, what do we got? Steve, my mother-in-law Diana and I were talking, and she shared that she has been watching your shows. I shared my experience, and she thought I should send my story in. I was hunting for deer above the small town Debec in western Colorado. Sometimes I don't pronounce things, and sometimes you guys I read kind of off. Just so you guys know, even right now, I've got a steel plate right there, and I got another steel plate right there. I have a jaw broken in 2 different places. It's quite the story. But I have no feeling right here at all, and my jaw starts feeling kind of weird in the whole corner of my mouth, and it'll make me, I can feel it, almost not a struggle, but it's just I can feel hindrance when it comes to reading after a bit. So just so you know, okay, you see me flub sometimes, but that's what's going on my end right now. Like right now, it just feels like part of my tongue isn't quite working properly. So you know, all right. I was hunting for deer above the small town of my branch. I was driving down off a big bench on Mountain Road, and I spot the upright walking thing that looked like a man in a ghillie suit crossing the road about 400 yards away. I tried to get the attention of the 2 people riding with me, but they did not see it. It crossed the road. I could see it well and noticed it was not armed. It walked methodical and turned and looked directly at us before walking into a drainage draw. I kept an eye on where it crossed and told friends what I'd seen as I drove as quick as I could to the spot last seen. I got out and looked for tracks, none. The dirt was soft, and I was puzzled, no tracks. We were discussing how strange it was, and that it wasn't armed while hunting season going. The others started feeling uneasy, saying maybe we should go and it might not want to be found. I relented and quit the search. but I'll never forget what I seen and how calm and slow it walked, and how it turned its head and no sign of it in this soft soil drainage. It just left no trace. This happened over 20 years ago. Everyone I tell makes jokes, so I don't share much. Thank you, Brett. Please respond with your thoughts or questions. First thought that comes to my mind, as usual, is you're not alone, man. You're not alone, obviously. That shit's been reported literally thousands of times. Thousands. Now you're a lifelong member of the Club of No Return. How do they pull off not leaving any sign? I haven't a clue. I've seen the sign myself, but how many people have reported seeing these things basically almost float when they're ripping through the timber? A lot of it doesn't make sense to us, right? Hopefully one day it's gonna soon. You know what you saw, we know you saw it. And just so you know, for any kind of another way to look at it, when people ridicule or laugh or don't even want to talk about it, I have discovered on my own, after talking to numerous people, especially people I know, I've hunted with, worked with, the majority of people that don't want to talk about this and laugh are scared of the topic and they want nothing to do with it. And that's why. They're not trying to make a fool out of you. They're trying to protect themselves from that reality. They don't want to accept it as real. They don't want anything to do with it. And fear actually causes laughter in a lot of people, right? Knee-jerk laughter. When this topic, there's nothing funny about it. There's nothing comical for any human being to say, holy shit, I saw a 10-foot tall upright hairy being walk across a road. That doesn't make people burst out laughing as a funny thing. If it did, comedians would be using that theme jokes all the time. They don't, because it's not funny, right? People laugh usually because it makes them uncomfortable. People laugh when they're uncomfortable. People laugh after they've been scared too, right? How many of us have had a near-death experience and we all laugh, start going, holy shit, that was freaking crazy, right? Lots. Anyway, let me get back to sharing. Puzzle piece. Love puzzle pieces. Give me one. Details. Important considerations for Roundtail members. All right. See what you got. Steve, I want to caution you on encouraging the people to get to the point and don't go on and on about things that seem on the surface to be trivial and not to the point of the story. I also want to submit important information that I've acquired over the last 50 plus years that is vital to one's understanding of the Sasquatch topic and will add puzzle pieces in significant ways. It can be used by anyone to further their pursuit of the truth if they're willing to shed their preconceived notions of what is and isn't reality. When the original big-name Bigfoot researchers were heavily involved in writing books, doing interviews, and stomping around the forest in an effort to better understand these subjects, they all made an unrecoverable error that led them all away from the truth and reinforced their joint confirmation bias to a high degree. That made it impossible for any of them to recognize the important facts that were right under their noses in many cases. Prime example of this was the research center Peter Burns set up in the Dalles, Oregon. He took in hundreds of eyewitness testimonies in an effort to assemble a large database with the intention of amassing a recognizable commonality that would hopefully model what Bigfoot was, and thus built a predictability map to figure out when and where these creatures could be found and studied. Peter Byrne, of course, was a big game hunter and never believed these were anything other than another type of flesh and blood animal that could be hunted down and killed. Although he tried to do just that, not only did he fail, but he never even saw a Bigfoot. By his own admission, he had a standard policy at the center to discard any report that mentioned anything about glowing red eyes, mind speak, disappearing footprints, invisibility, use of language, etc. In other words, the very thing that he should have been looking for and studying was the very thing he rejected. No wonder he spent years chasing his tail and essentially getting nowhere. And that goes for the rest of the bunch also. You know their names. You have heard the phrase, the devil is in the details. That is exactly what I want people listening to this channel to get. When you read a listener's submitted case, we all need to carefully pick up on the anomalous details, for in them lies the answers we seek. It is the anomalies that confirm the reality and the truth of the incident. Every Bigfoot encounter has these anomalies, without exception. Being able to discern them can be somewhat of a challenge at times, but it is necessary to the overall understanding of the event. While the actual encounter can be significant and life-changing to be sure, it is the anomalous details that will make great stories and one's ability to make sense of these seemingly unconnected events. What happened the day before or after can be just as important as the encounter itself. If you believe that there are no coincidences and that everything happens for a reason, it just goes to show that this reality is being made for us in many cases. If two people are standing right next to each other and one hears a loud sound and the other does not, that is an anomaly. A defined anomaly in such cases is something that should not be or could not be, and yet it is. It is unexplainable and often bizarre. It leaves a person scratching their head and saying, "What the F?" My own experiences with this and other paranormal subjects such as UFO, angels, poltergeist activities, Ouija board, premonitions, etc., confirms time and time that there is a common thread that runs through all of them, including Bigfoot / Sasquatch / Sabbath. So listen to the details and learn to extract from them what you can, and your puzzle pieces will appear in record numbers. Your channel is a success because you are not rejecting these anomalies. In fact, you are demonstrating an open mind and a willingness to hear out what we have to say, and we all appreciate that very much. In years past, people that would report their encounters openly admitted that they would leave out the weird stuff, so they would hopefully be believed on the rest of the story. How sad. Details, people. Still respectfully waiting for you to read my submitted story that is loaded with anomalies. Jade Hodgson from Eastern Washington. The G in the name is silent if you use. Jade Hodgson. There you go. Jade, thanks. Absolutely appreciate that share. Those are great words to share with everybody for sure. And yeah, like I said earlier, the majority of the so-called big names of the past, when it comes to this topic, they did great for themselves while discussing this topic. They did awesome for themselves, right? They promoted themselves using this topic. They benefited for themselves by using this topic, right? They didn't actually really truly try to get to the bottom of it. If they did, they would have screaming out loud about Mindspeak, glowing eyes, disappearing trackways in snow, balls of light, right? But they didn't. Sacks of shit. Oh boy. But anyway, I think I'm going to close on that. That email share is a good one to close this segment on. Everybody out there, start trusting your neighbor again, all right? Don't give in to the divide that's being imposed on communities today. Fight against it. Don't give in to it. Look into every single thing you can on your own. Come up with your own answers. Do not get force-fed answers on any topic. All right? Don't give in to peer pressure. Do not fear anything, especially death. All right? And this is it. I will be gone tomorrow. Just caught word a partner of mine canceled last minute, so I will be solo in the middle of frickin' nowhere for quite some time, and I will be videotaping every single thing I can as usual. And that'd be a weird thing to say, but there's always a chance if I don't come back. No regrets, man. No regrets for me if I don't come back from this one. But I probably will. But let's say I did. Make sure somebody frickin' picks up that torch and keeps it burning and passes it on, and don't quit. Don't quit. Alright? Fight tyranny. Don't quit. Fight for freedom. Don't quit. Don't fear your neighbor. Alright? Here I go. Time to go get this all done. Start packing. Oh my god. Be safe out there. Keep sharing. Keep looking everybody in the eye. Square up, shoulder to shoulder, and speak openly and honestly. And don't ever leave out any details of anything. And do not be as scared of your neighbor anymore. Alright? There you go.